1 billion. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay. And then the operational part of the budget is actually allocation to be 338.28 billion. Doctor, let's tap onto the economist's mind right now. Can you give your comment about the targeted numbers here? And also at the bottom of the screen, we actually put an indicators that the PMS was actually talking about. We are actually putting our growth target to be 4 to 4.5%. Can you comment a little bit about the budgets this particular year, as well as the target that was actually set on the GDP growth? Over to you.
All right. So first of all, thanks for Agnes for your invitation. So always my pleasure to be here with you on stage, whether it's virtual stage or physical stage. It's always a pleasant time with you, talking about all these issues. So now let's have a background, a picture about what the budget is going to be for next year when it comes to the overall economic environment, because budget somehow, in a way, it's a response to not just the long-term economy needs, when we talk about what kind of economy we want to be down the road 10 years going forward, but it also is a response to what happened to year by year economic situation. Now, we are already, we have left behind those COVID times, when we need a really huge government injection into the economy in order to support the day-to-day kind of economic activity. So in that sense, we probably will have to forget about any allocations or any, whether it's a tax exemption or whether it's a government budget allocation or spending that will directly benefit the companies in terms like, remember which subsidies years back, or any matching grants that have no condition attached. So those years are gone. It's not going to be in years to come as well, not just by 2026, but probably not even 27, 28, so on and so forth, unless we have recession. Then that's a different story. So that's number one, right? And when we look at the economic growth, like what you have projected, put up on your screen as well. So, I mean, 4 to 4.5%, it's not spectacular, but it's a good projection. It's a good economic performance if we can achieve that as well. If you remember that in 2019, the year after Trump having his first tariff against China, remember that 2018 the tariff was just against China. But then the next year, our economic growth has been slowing down to, I guess, about 3.7, 3.8% economic growth. So even though the tariff was not against us or the rest of the world, but just on China. But this round, even we have that tariff against the whole world, but still we are able to hold up our growth this year. So very likely to be able to do so next year. Even the whole world has been able to hold up their growth, very nicely this year amid all these geopolitical uncertainty. So, which means what? Which means, and then, so next year, the years to come are going to be the, you probably may not think that is a good year, but that is the kind of economic stability the government needs in order to refocus the budget to something more long-term. So you are going to discuss a lot of budget allocations are something related to economic transformation, so on and so forth. Even last point, before we go to the next question, even when we look at how that development expenditure is allocated, you notice that in this year, you have a massive role for GLIC with about 50 billion plus contribution coming from GLIC. So that is something that we haven't done before. Where the GIC will take up part of the role of rolling out the development expenditure that the government needs to have, partly because of the requirement to meet the budget deficit target as well. But I believe that more important is to have GIC, which are more, in a way, professional than our bureaucracies when it comes to rolling out the development related to startup, related to investing in industries that we are not familiar with, because investing in the startups and investing in infrastructure, they are two very different animals. So we probably need that kind of perspectives when we want to discuss next year's budget.
Okay. All right. So you touched about GLIC, right? So, okay, I'm looking at this particular graph. So you can see that GLIC is something that was separately highlighted this year. It was actually separately highlighted this year as a separate category. And then as mentioned as well, it is in total of 50 over billion was actually allocated for that. Now, what is your thought about government using it at the same time? Because would it actually means that government now you go beyond your role as a policy maker and the policy implementer, okay? And then you move down to the ground and do business. But doing business is not what a government should get into as well, right? So by having all those things that's coming in, is it the government is also taking certain level of risk by evolving its development expenditure towards investments approach, you think?
Well, that's a fair comment. You know, some will even argue that by doing so, you are basically putting GLIC into an uncharted territory. You probably may put their financial stability into jeopardy, you know, if it's not handled well. So I say that that's a fair comment. But I will also think from another perspective that, like I said just now, investing in, when it comes to development expenditure, so the mindset, the concept that we used to have would be, we want to see government putting money in, let's say, launching different infrastructure development, you know, another LRT project. So those are very conventional, very physical, very capital intensive kind of development projects. But this round, you didn't see that kind of projects going on.
Yes.
But what you observe will be the money that the government try to allocate when it comes to development expenditure are more something to do with entrepreneurs, innovation. So I believe that this is something that the agencies that we have with the government, the bureaucracy in particular, are not familiar with. You know, you don't think that bureaucracies are entrepreneurial enough when it comes to this. But GLIC, Khazanah, for example, credit funds, for example, they have been there in the business for a very long time. So and they are part of ecosystems as well. So now, when we want to moving toward the 2030 ideas, where we are no longer investment driven, we are no longer infrastructure investment driven, but we try to move Malaysia to become an innovation driven nation. So I think that is a good move to have this GIC. Like I said, those are already in the ecosystem to play that role. So that's number one. Number two, it comes back to, Agnes, your question. The government should not doing business, which is totally true, which I totally agree as well. But in this time, I don't think it is government directly involving in deciding who shall be the one to get the government's money. I mean, we used to have that kind of practice or mindset in the past that government can pick, and pick the winners. And we have done that in 1980s, 1990s, and we burned a lot of money, and most of the winners, picked by the government are usually the losers at the end. So, but this round, when we having these GLICs, like I said, where they have been in the business for a long time, so it is not really about picking the winners, but it is about providing that funds may not be the sufficient condition, but certainly the necessary condition for innovation-driven economic structure to roll out. So, I in that sense, I don't see that as government directly involving in that business, be the businessman running that business on the ground, but more towards creating or nurturing an environment that allowed our local private entrepreneurs to blossom. So that's how I view it.
I have one very interesting question actually from the audience, which I thought I'm going to intercept this. It's going to be quite a critical one. I'm not sure whether do you have that information, yeah, Doctor? From Frankie Tan. He said, may I know what the interest payment portions for our government debt in this budget? Do you have any information about that?
All right. So I think that interest payment percentage, it's about 15 to 16% of the total operating expenditure. Not of the total government budget, but just the part of operating expenditure, 15, 16%. That
Right.
that is not something scary.
You think so?
Right,
It is
because
it is considered manageable?
manageable and having that 10, 15 percent, it's something normal. It has been all this while. When I say all this while, I mean probably since independence, whenever we start
Okay.
to have our own budget. So that's how it looks like. And don't forget that we have that 15, 16% of total operating expenditure. It's during the period when we have about like 4% of interest rates.
Oh,
So still, it is below 20%. It's a manageable 15 to 16. So that's something, like I said, therefore, it's not really scary. So that's number one. Let me give you 2 points.
great.
Why interest payments on this government debt shouldn't be a story or shouldn't be something concerning in Malaysia? Because about 60+% of our government debt are actually in the hands of GRICs, including
Mm,
EPF, Khazanah, domestic banks. So the interest payments that the government incurred are going are going into the pockets of government's right hands pockets, the GRICs,
mm.
the Khazanah, which at the end will come back to government when it comes to consolidated funds, so on and so forth. So those interests are not flowing out from Malaysia, going into the hands of foreign investors. So the government debt, in some perspective, in a large extent, is actually Malaysian citizens' assets. So therefore, in that sense, if you are worried, because when Frankie asking this question, I believe that he probably is worried about our level, the debt level that Malaysia has. But so
Yeah.
therefore, in that sense, I don't think it is worrying. And last one more point, why
Mm,
this debt issue should, oh, I always say this in a different occasion, should put into rest, because
mm.
we have almost almost all of our government debt are in ringgit. And that is a very important characteristics. When you have government debt in ringgit rather than in foreign currencies, which we used to have in early 1980s, it makes this government debt protected from any volatility of ringgit against the foreign currencies. So you will not have a situations like in the mid-1980s or during the Asian financial crisis when our currency, crashed, and then somehow the government debt burden, because of having foreign currency denominated debt, then will suddenly explode. So those kind of days or periods have been over. So when you have almost all of our government debt in ringgit, it means what? It means that anytime if someone, let's say the foreign investors in the market, they want to like dump our government bond, let's say, let's suppose that
Mm.
that things happen, you always have Bank Negara to be there as the last resort to absorb all the government debt, because it's in ringgit, and ringgit is the authority of Bank Negara to print. Of course, I'm not saying that Bank Negara will play that role, but simply having that possibility means our government debt is super safe.
So meaning we have learned from our lessons from the financial crisis.
We did.
Wow.
That's the
Oh,
reason why we went through global financial crisis 2008, and you have the COVID recessions. You have these high interest periods in the last 2 years, 2022 to 2024, but still, plus you have that huge crash in our ringgit. Remember during 2016, because of 1 NDB, the currency basically crashed from 2.9 ringgit all the
yeah.
way up to like 4 point something, but still nothing happened to the economy actually.
Right. So this message, I think, is very new and very bold and very clear, crystal clear until KH Tai asked, so he wanted to affirm. So not all interest payment are outflow of fund from Malaysia.
No, not really.
Okay, wow. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a very good information for all of us to receive here from Dr. Wong, yeah, to actually explain economics from how do you call a very basic classroom approach, right? Which is very good. And Frankie also had another question, which is very relevant. Probably only happened about how do you call this week itself or last week, which is the reciprocal tariff agreement that was signed between the US, whereby we have actually pledged to actually invest $60 billion in US. So do you have any comment on that?
All right. So that 70 billion US dollars investments over the next 10 years, so more or less 7 billion a year. Now, someone will say, of course, the first reaction that I receive from my peers will be like, why ask us to invest in United States while we are the developing country? All right, we're supposed to ask the US investors. So that's how we menggadaikan our sovereignty. Now, my reaction will be 3 points. Number one, what's wrong with investing in the United States? When you are able to invest in United States, facilitated by the US government, let's say, for example, to have your investments on the soil of the United States, I mean, that basically you are tapping the largest market in the world. You are tapping at the largest market, not just for products, goods and services, but also for technology, for ecosystem. I mean, how many multinational companies that we are familiar with, from Taiwan, from Japan, from China, so they all have their milestone achieved because of exploring or tapping on the US market. So, I mean, if we are able to have our companies investing in the United States, that means that is something really big for a Malaysian economic transformation. So from that perspective, thinking about from business perspective, if you are able to tap on the US market, that is not called being colonized but that's called a chance and opportunity for the companies to grow. So that's number one. Number two, and it's not something new. When I say it's not something new, because we did have a lot of US investments all this while. Now, if you read that clause, you will notice that clause doesn't exclude or doesn't limit our investment in the United States only on the FDI kind of so-called the greenfield investments, meaning setting up factories and doing production there. It doesn't limit, it is not limited to that kind of investments, but which means it's going to be including all kind of investment in the United States, including portfolio investment in the US stock markets, investing in the US bonds markets, which at the end, of course, will help creating or boosting the US economy. And we did that all this while. For example, EPF has about 1.3 trillion ringgit asset at this moment. So according to their statements, I guess more or less 40% are in United States. So 40% of their 1.3, 1.5 trillion assets you convert based on 4.2 ringgit per US dollars. So that is about 100 billion US dollars investments in the United States already. You already have 100 billion plus investments in the United States. Now you are asking 7 billion a year or 70 billion for 10 years. I mean, that is not something that out of our imagination, because again, like I said, EPF alone already has that kind of investments right there. Not to speak the fact that like Malaysian companies, till date, if I'm not mistaken, we have about like 50 plus billion investment already in the United States, doing physical productions, not just stock investments. And then we have our Bank Negara holding the government US Treasury bonds as well as their foreign currency reserve. I guess another 100 billions, that kind of amount. So in that sense, if we think back from business perspective, if we think back from what we have already done in the past, that's not really something unimaginable. Yeah.
Right. I think this information that Dr. Wong actually feeding us is actually very important. And thank you very much, Dr. Wong, for sharing that. And then I can see that there is, just this questions from Jason Pang. Again, they wanted to reaffirm, Doctor, about this interest, payment and this debt management that we as a country going to do. Jason Pang asked, can I understand that as long as our debts are denominated in ringgit, our government can keep taking loan and print money and more money without limits? Like US, I believe, I think that's where he's actually mirrored that kind of imagination into. And maybe you wanted to comment about what our central banks, what is the position that our central banks taking when it comes to that? We print or we don't print, or what do we do?
So other than the points that I just made, the point where because Bank Negara always can play that last lender of last resort role, he is always there to absorb all these ringgit denominated government bonds. So that possibility alone, like I said just now, is the best backstop for our government bonds credibility. So that's number one. There are two more points actually why I don't think this government bonds issues should be a concern. It has been politically, in a hoo-ha
politicized.
Politicized for too long. So the second point is that you imagine this: why government raise bonds? It raised bonds not because of paying salaries to our servants. So that part we are very sure. All the operating expenditure must be legally, must be completely 100% covered by tax revenue. All right. So the government can only raise bond, to have debts, to incur debts for development expenditure purpose. That means to grow the economy. So therefore, every bonds that you borrow, just like you're running business, every borrowing that you have done, not just because you want to buy a car, but you want to put the money into business so that later on, with the revenue generated from that new business, of course, you are able to pay back whatever loans you have incurred. So it's like, let's say, when I always tell my students, when I ask you, is 10,000 debt huge for you? Yeah, that's huge, but that's not for me. Why? Because you have no income, but I do have. So which means what? Which means that that amount itself is not the critical issue. It is relative to the size of the economy that matters.
I see. So it's affordable. We can afford it.
Yeah,
we can afford it.
And how do we know that we can afford it? As long as the economy grows faster than the interest rate that we pay.
Just like any business, when we talked about how you're going to reach your profitability.
Exactly.
Just
So we have our growth about 4-5% every year. So the interest rate that we pay after minus all the interest rate stuff is just about like 2%. So our growth rates are always higher than the interest payments, the real interest payment after adjusting. Yeah. So that's the second point. Allow me to make the last point.
Sure.
We have to pay back debt because we used to we like to use our households as an example to explain about government debt. You see how you individual households you have to clear the debt, otherwise it becomes unsustainable. But government is different from individual or different from household because government is immortal. You can have a forever leave government. You may change administration, but the government is forever. So whenever you have a forever government, which means that the government can forever raise the debt. As long as all the conditions I just mentioned, it is fulfilled, then the government can forever raise the debt, and government doesn't need to clear the debt. As long as the creditors means those who buy the government's bonds and lend the money to government, are confident enough of the credibility and the reputation of the government, then they are okay. So far, do we have any concerns from the creditors? No. So they are all okay with government reputation. One of the, 1.5 hour really is not enough for us.
Yeah, no problem. Today, we wanted to talk economics.
So one more point. Because while I'm talking, I think about this point. How do we know that the market is really worried about our government reputation when it comes to this government debt? just look at the interest rates the creditors ask for. And when you look at the interest rates, when I say interest rate, means the bonds interest rates in the market, it has been so calm all these years in the past 3-4 decades where you never see any spike in the interest rate. Unlike the case of France, if anyone pay notice to French economy in the past months, like for example, and when they have a change in their prime ministers, and then again the people worried about the possibility of French governments, to have a default on their debt, then the interest rate just suddenly spiked up. Because the creditors feared about that possibility and therefore asking for more interest payment from the government. Now, that is the real signal of market concern about the government's ability to pay back the fund because of the debt issue. But we never see that in Malaysia. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Doctor, I'd like to still delve into this questions on debt and currency matters with one more question. We are observing that China is actually coming into Malaysia, or rather part of their collaborations or working relationship with us is actually to help us to build some of our infrastructure, right? Our rail and etc. I think even the Pen Borneo, they are somewhat involved. And then of course the Eastern Coast as well. Those, do you know what currency it was actually in? Is it also ringgit, or it's also something that's affordable? Yeah, or what was that deal on?
One of the difference of Chinese FDI compared to other FDI from Singapore, from United States, from Japan, like for example, it's that it always comes with loans. It's like a pair. So that means we let's say, for example, having the Chinese construction company building up the ECRL, let's say, for example. So, we count that as the FDI inflow in the infrastructure investments. But at the same time, the loans will come because you have to tap on the Chinese loans. That's a must in order to take up that project. So we do not know, to be frank, it's very opaque. We do not know the currencies and the interests as well.
For those projects.
For those loans. Like I say, it's opaque and we do not have any documents about that. But based on what happened to the rest of the world when it comes to these Chinese investments in infrastructure, so interest rate is more or less a 4 to 5%. That's quite high, compared to the other kind of bridge loans that we can get from, let's say, Japanese government, from World Bank, for example. The interest rate usually would be below 2%. So yeah, so that's number one. So I do not know, to be frank, whether it's in
what currency
yuan,
they enter into, right?
Yeah, is it in yuan or whether it's in ringgit, and what's really the level of interest rate that we are paying. But I think that that this kind of investments, G2G, government to government infrastructure investments, are not profit oriented. China having all these investments through One Belt One Road initiative are not out there to run profitable business. I have met those leaders of those companies. So from there I know that all the overseas branches they are operating are there mainly to satisfy the strategic needs of the political leadership, not there for profit purpose like all other kind of FDI you can imagine from all other countries. So because of that, you don't really, we can't judge from profitability point of view when it comes to all these kind of investments.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Doctor, for such an insightful sharing on this particular one from GLIC to the questions on the interest and whether we can afford it and stuff like that. Now, allow me to actually move on to my next slides, which is the 13th Malaysian Plan. Now, in the Malaysian Plan, I just do a quick snapshot only. It's only a one slide, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're logging for the first time, just to let you know, this is going to be a very different budget sharing. Right, we're talking about economics. That's why we have Dr. Wong with us, right? It's not just going to be the very domestic micro informations about taxes. and we wanted to actually understand the directions, because I think as business owners and decision maker, we do need to actually have more information beyond what are the tax changes that is being announced through the budget 2026. Now, let's come back to this particular slide. So we have this 13 Malaysian plan, which is supposed to cover next year until 2030. Ironically, we also said in this particular Malaysian plan that by the year 2030, we hope to call ourselves an AI nation. And if you look into the indicator 1 to 7 that we actually listed out, in budget 2024, if some of you who has been following Syarikat on budget talk, that was the time when I commented to say that I'm actually happy to see that the government decided to benchmark with numbers, meaning like a company. So you set a target and then you move towards it. Instead of just to say, like, okay, we're going to do this, that, and stuff like that. A goodie-driven, Dr. Wong, previously we are very much of a goodie-driven approach, but I think we are now towards a directions whereby we wanted to be more positioning approach, meaning how do we actually hold our flag? What is our positioning when you see Malaysian flag? You had to say, what is the overall global branding we wanted to go forward to? So as a result, then we can see certain indicator was being set up. On top of that, including the top 30 largest economies in the world, okay, being one of the indicator. Number 2, we talk about top 12. Top 12 in global competitiveness in the budget being announced by the government. PMS actually mentioned we are 20-something. So we are like so-called like a half mark in our marathon, which appear to be a half mark. So, and then we wanted to, at our corruption perspective index to be top 25. I believe at the moment we are rather low. Increased compensations of employees to 45%. Basically, we're talking about raising the floor of everybody, the well-being, the income group, and etc. And we wanted to move up the Human Development Index to top 25. Hence, we see a lot of things on the upskilling. Money was actually being allocated, and the fiscal and debt deficit below 3% of to GDP, and 60% female labor force participation rate. So this is what we actually list out. Of all the items that we are having here, allow us to actually use these 2 items, Doctor, as our discussion coming forward, which is top 12 in global perspective as well as top 30 in largest economies. Now, we have just ended our summit, our ASEAN summit, right? So in the summit, we talked about everybody, everybody who scroll the social media will realize that all the government leaders will talk about, we are here to talk about free trade agreement. Everybody wanted to talk about free trade agreement, right? So free trade agreement was also having its deadline under RCEP, RCEP. BRICS is rather new, okay? We do not know much about it yet, but ASEAN, we are also talking about free trade zones and then free trade items and etc. Now, I would like Dr. Wong to actually comment on this free trade arrangement, right? Do you think Malaysia businesses, SMEs in particular, do you think are we prepared and ready, or the country as a whole, are we ready to be enter into this free trade and then competitive enough, right, in this free trade environment that everyone is actually asking for? And all the countries who come forward wanted to have some free trade of some sorts with Malaysia. Are we ready competitively when it comes to this? Over to you, Doctor.
All right, a couple of points here. We do have, I believe that everyone knows when I say we, I mean Malaysia, did sign a lot of free trade agreements in the past. Since 1990s, you have all different kind of agreements. The latest 2, the one we are more familiar with, are, of course, the RCEP and the CPTPP, right? Now, but the problem, the issue is, if I can recall, according to a survey done by FMM, the Federation of Manufacturers, Malaysian Manufacturers, 77% of their members realize about RCEP. They know there's RCEP, but none of them, 0, None of
Yeah.
them actually utilize that facility. All right.
Okay.
And then we
That's
also,
nice.
also we have another survey, again about in the last 2 years, because the RCEP was rectified by the end of 2022, so it has been implemented for about 2.5 years. So about 9% of Malaysian exporters are utilizing that facilities of RCEP. But that 9% is also already a very low number.
Mm.
But the exports from that 9% of exporters amount to not even 0.1% of Malaysian total exports among these RCEP members. I'm not saying about 1%. It's not even 0.1% of Malaysian exports to among RCEP utilizing these RCEP facilities. So what I'm trying to say is we can sign thousands of agreements, but at the end, it means nothing.
Exactly.
If our businessmen, our businesses, our exporters, our importers are not aware about this, and then are not utilizing all these facilities. So now the question, therefore, is not about whether at national level we have done enough or not, but it has been the issue on the ground, whether our companies in Malaysia, our SME in particular, because I believe that those large companies, for sure, they are capable, they have the managerial capability to go through all these things, are ready really to really look into it, to think about it, to strategize the business, according with this in mind, and therefore to utilize this kind of thing. So I think that is the biggest issue that for me, when it comes to this free trade agreement, rather than, are we going to have, because when I say the biggest issue is not signing agreements, because agreements today, we have too many agreements
Yes,
nowadays.
exactly.
For example, we just have RCEP. RCEP is ASEAN driven, including another 5 countries from Asia Pacific. But at the same time, we're just having upgraded our ASEAN and China free trade agreement 3.0.
Yes.
What's the point? I mean, when I say what's the point, means we just have RCEP. That also includes China. So now we have another ASEAN free trade agreement with China 3.0. Are they compatible when it comes to all these terms and conditions in this? And then if they are not, it only will burdensome our businessmen. When they try to file up, what do you call it? They try to fill in all the details. Should they really obey this RCEP, or should they really utilize the ASEAN China free trade agreement when they say we are doing business with China? So if they are compatible, then what's the point to have another one? If they are not compatible, then you're making business more troublesome. So that's the issue as well. When it comes to this free trade agreement, I mean, from that strategy point of view, everyone talks about diversification away from United States because of the tariff stuff. So then, of course, we cannot rely on the US, neither on China itself, but more trading partners, the better. But again, signing agreements is one thing, but when it comes to practical stuff, it's another thing.
Yeah, true. I think what I always fear is at the end of the day, these are just political, should I say, it is like your tick-off box, it is like, or as a political parties, or a leader of a country, you have to be seen in doing certain things, but getting down to the ground into implementations is always the hardest. I wonder whether, now, I know in the audience today, we have people coming from MCMTC who signed in, Mid-Tier Consortium actually signed in. I'm not sure who else will also sign in, but I think what is actually very important, ladies and gentlemen, is to go to the associations that you are actually part of, right? And then prompt that questions and then say, hey, shall we actually understand a little bit about all the agreements and all the things that the government has actually put in place, right? Sometimes the fruit is there, everyone is very occupied, we don't know where to pluck. So hence, when we do not know where to pluck, we don't know how to utilize it, it's very difficult for us to say, oh, I see things in the budget, or I see things in the Malaysian plan. I see things that the government is doing things for me. Yeah, so sometimes it's also another step forward from our side here to actually find out more, taking that initiative. Speaking about that, I really, on top of my head, I also don't know who to turn to actually get more information about RCEP, for example, or even ASEAN initiative that has been signed so far. Yeah. So is there an agency for it? Now, let me share with you my recent experience when I was actually in China. They actually have a little like a working team taking care of ASEAN matters in China. So I went to Nanning, and at Nanning, that particular distribution, Nanning is at the border of Laos. So they actually have an administrative office just to execute and implement and monitoring the implementations of things that actually sign back. I think Malaysia need that as well, so that we know how do we actually move forward to ensure should I say that whatever that has been signed, has been entered into, we can plug on. Because at the end of the day, we have these 7 indicators that we are looking at, and we must somehow tap on it, right? To grow our competitiveness, we need to be able to pivot ourselves as well. So now, very quickly, we have taken a lot more time than expected, but totally fine, Doctor. Yeah, because anything on tax, to me, those are the things that, ladies and gentlemen, you can always come back to look for Syarikat on for more information. Dr. Wong's knowledge is super important here. I'd like to move on to the next part of our conversation, which is regarding the funding that was actually set aside. Now, 6.over billion was actually dissected into 6 categories, right? Whereby it is so-called like the fund allocated available for different platform, right? And then what is there to support for, right? Ladies and gentlemen, if you want my slide, just drop a note to one of the QR code that we're going to give you at the end of our slide presentation. Screen that and tell us that you wanted the slides, and we'll be happy to actually share it with you. Okay. So we see that, like, for example, SMEs, mid-tier and export growth. For expansion purposes, you have this Khazanah mid-tier company program. We have Exim Bank putting aside 500 million to actually support MySafe. 30 million, this will be go through the crowdfunding platform, right? And the list goes on. So we have one of the things that was actually mentioned is we wanted to be a halal leader in the world. Okay, I think this part Malaysia has done a great job on, right? Whereby how do they actually look into that sector? So a lot of money was also being set aside for that. For innovation and etc., there are cradle funds, there are Dana National Syarikat Terbitan, having seed fund for you to spin off whatever that to commercialize your R&D, digitization, automation for production purposes. 1 billion was set aside to support the automation process, digitization, and business processes. At the moment, that's all the information we have, ladies and gentlemen. How to actually tab on, you do need to actually go to the right agency and platform. So like I said, we are happy to actually pass you our slides so that you know which particular agency you go for, and then do your own research on those matters, okay? And then we see entrepreneurship support, right? Microfinancing, putting aside by BSN as well as 𝐁𝐿𝐴, 2.5 billion. I would say that is the largest. And on agro side, right, we wanted to support automation, 1.1 billion was actually set aside. Microfinancing, 20 million, and etc. And the list goes on, okay? And rural cooperative and community, right? We talk about wanted to actually support the online businesses as well. On the rural and entrepreneur, 350 million was set aside. And also to support the cooperative enterprise nationwide, 50 million, right? So like I said, ladies and gentlemen, these are the platform of agencies who's actually managing the fund allocation, right? We're happy to actually pass the information over to you so that you could actually, find out more on which relevant to you. Now, Dr. Wong, by looking into the 6 sectors that was actually set aside, having the funds and etc., if I may just highlight on, say, if I say should I say, startup funds, right? Or some of the microfinancing. During the COVID time, right? That was the first time that we started talking about we wanted to give banking facilities to the micro SMEs and etc. Now, we had a lot of problem with it, right? Because the numbers were not ready, their accounts was not up to date and stuff like that. So they have been, being declined or denied on financing at the end of the day. So with currently the process going on for 2026, do you have anything to comment about the fund allocation approach and strategies that the government actually put forward to?
I think, again, a couple of things. Number one, all these funds are there um, to promote or to nurture an entrepreneur society, from micro, super micro, all the way to mid-tier. And you will notice that probably later on, and as you have slides on that, the government also have a lot of allocations for guarantees, for example, not just loan facilities, but guarantees as well. So those are the efforts to promote a culture where the entrepreneurs will have to put in effort and in order to tap on the government funds. So it's not like a free money to you and then without any conditions. So the condition is you must do something, and then put in effort. So the government therefore is there, to help. So that's number one. So which means that even from the micro firms level, that whenever you start a business, then you want to tap on the government's funds, and it's what you said, being declined because of the documentation issues, then start from that documentation. Point. This is probably where you should begin, and of course with the e-filing. So that is another way that you probably will are forced to do so as well. So that kind of e-invoicing, yes, not e-filing, but e-invoicing. So that kind of e-documentation is in the way to get our companies, seriously ready for this kind of thing. So that's my another point. Yeah, so that's what I have.
Sure. Yeah. And another things to actually take note of is actually the government guarantee. 69 billion was actually set aside for various kind of guarantee they are willing to actually put forward to. Do you think this is excessive from a government perspective? Why should government doing all the guarantee, and do you think it's actually the right directions?
And don't forget that this is the guarantee for next year. And we actually have guarantees from last year budget, from a year before. It actually lasts for usually 2 to 3 years. It's not the 1 year kind of stuff. So that means we have, and as far as I know, there are many guarantees or many facilities are not utilized again by our local businesses. So again, that is the questions of, it is not that the government didn't prepare those facilities, or facilities are not there, just like what we discussed just now. Not that the agreements are not there, but whether our entrepreneurs are ready, aware to tap on these facilities. So that's a point. So whether you ask me whether it's excessive or not, that really depends on the take up. So if you have a lot of take ups, you always would say that these kind of things are really not sufficient. But if we didn't have those take ups, then again,
then the guarantee is just the same.
Yeah, it's just it has no meaning then.
Sure.
So that's the reason why last year's development expenditure, the actual development expenditure was fewer than what has been allocated. Very rare that we have that kind of scenario, because usually the government has to asking the parliaments to allow top up of the expenditure. Yeah, but yeah, that's the point.
So the directions towards putting through to the government-linked investment committee company is actually the right directions. Yeah. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go down to something slightly drier now. We talk about tax a little bit. So, okay, for today's conversations on budgets, I have dissected the tax matter on the budgets into four sections. One impact on company, another one impact on employer, company but as employer, impact on individual, as well as impact on the property industry. So let's look into the impact on company, right? So there are, in fact, quite, should I say, a number of tax deductions, exemptions, and incentive that was actually given by the government, right? So they are, for the purpose today, I actually list out 20 of them. Now let us look into the first one. Right, so we have expansion and extension of exemptions for FSI, right? Basically, what we are saying is we will be extending another 4 years for company, which also include people who are actually in the trust, yeah, to actually receiving the dividend coming into Malaysia, which is actually free from further tax. Okay, if you have proven, terms and conditions apply, ladies and gentlemen. If you have already proven that particular money was already subject to foreign tax. Of course, we also have the expansions of tax deductions of cost of listing. Expansion means last time we are talking about the cost of listing with 1.5 million, 1.5 million bursa fee that you pay. For those people who come under the IT, they can actually claim tax deductions. So right now we are actually extend that particular category a little bit more, right, to also cover other sectors as well. Okay, let me just pick out my numbers, which also expanded to MSME as well as company, the MSME who is actually in energy as well as utility sector. But ladies and gentlemen, one thing not yet resolved when it comes to expansion of tax deductions for cost of listing is the cost of listing of a listed company will always be at the holding company, which is the 𝗂𝘁𝗏 itself. There is always a 𝗂𝘁𝗏 that was actually capturing it. But the tax computation of the 𝗂𝘁𝗏 is always an investment holding company tax computation. The investment holding company tax computation in the tax term, we call it 60F, meaning there are only certain type of expenses which actually allow for deductions. So how do we actually deduct these particular expenses is something that the tax practitioner industry is still trying to talk to the Inland Revenue and say, you have to allow it to be a direct expenses of the holding company in order to do that. Or another way is, do you allow me to actually have the cost of listing, right, to be not captured in holding company, but at another subsidiary company whereby I can claim it directly, because holding company generally are not actually going to enjoy a lot of profit. Or rather, should I say income, right? It is the subsidiary company consolidated result we are talking about. So in fact, this particular fruits that was actually hanging is something that's not easy to plug. Now, and the extensions of taxation for social enterprise, basically this one announced during 21/8, whereby in addition to the charitable organizations that you are under 44(6), for social enterprises, they are also allowed to actually apply a tax exempt status, so that a donor, when you donate to them, you can actually get your exempt donations receipts as well. Now, this particular one, what they actually did was merely an extension, I'll say. It's merely an extension of the exemptions for those who are actually under social enterprises. But social enterprises, if you are churches or you are whatever, you cannot assume that you are social enterprise. You've got to actually apply for the status. If you have any, if you are actually supporting any of this group and they would like to actually see themselves whether they qualify for social and enterprise status, by all means can give Syarikat Ong a call. Okay. Sukuk, I won't talk much about it. Okay, item number 5, accelerated capital allowance, right, on plant, machineries, and IT equipment. So basically what the government has done on this particular one, in the past, right, these items, they may have been depreciated in tax term, in capital allowance, they may have been tax appreciated over a longer time. So right now it was basically shorten it to 2 years. Right, in the period of 2 years, you can opt to fully actually claim your this category of your assets, okay, to be 100% claimed within 2 years in your capital allowance claim. Now, when it comes to this particular one, recently I was actually part of the Hasil Roadshow, budget roadshow. So we visited a few locations. I actually highlighted on one important things. For those of you who may actually pay ICT equipment include software, if you actually pay software, you realize that software is also called as a royalty. And especially foreign software that you subscribe, whereby you need to actually pay a withholding tax for it. So in fact, during the panel the discussion, I actually raised this particular issue, that in this particular budget, you actually already put software as well as consultation fee relating to the installation of the computer software, right, to be part of the asset that can come under accelerated capital allowance. Then why are you still having another definition called royalty, whereby we have to pay another tax on it, right? So I hope that the government is listening to that particular request and re-looked into the withholding tax matter, and then re-looked into IT equipment, not the hardware, but the software, okay? So the software issue is actually on that. Now, there are also tax incentives that was actually being put up on food security, okay, projects, right? And as well as other things like the tax treatment for public university and hospital endowment funds, whereby what they are actually wanted to do is they want the public universities to also set up a little sort of like a charitable pool of fund, get a status whereby you can actually do a donation to them, and then you can actually get a tax exemption for that, right? For like the approved donation. And to actually help out with the logistic, item number 8, the speed limitation device for heavy equipment. Right now, I think in the media right now, you see a lot of situations whereby the lorries was actually having major accidents. And I think 1 or 2 cases of directly langgar the toll plaza, isn't it? So those are something that really require attention of the rakyat, and they actually allowed that those companies that was actually maintain a heavy vehicle of certain weight, right, to actually buy this speed limitation device, and then allow them to actually claim a ACA on that accelerated capital allowance for that. And then to actually help out in upskilling our people and to upskill our knowledge, I would say, the government encourage you to also, should I say, the company, part of your ESG, maybe, to look into a scholarship sponsor for Malaysian students, okay? Now, when it comes to this particular sponsorship of the Malaysian students, right, they also allows you to also sponsors people who actually study professional certification, right? So ACCA or whatever, if I'm not mistaken, is actually part of it. Okay, let's wait for the blueprint for that. But however, they have quietly removed master degree and doctorate out from the this particular category, meaning you would not actually get a double deductions if you are sponsoring people of that. So in this particular part, I actually made a comment on it as well during my panel discussion with the government to actually say that, look, in order to improve competitiveness, okay, of Malaysia by and large, right, we probably do not have enough of people who advance beyond bachelor degree in a way, right, who are maybe even go into research sector, right, which is a different category of positionings and in the education sector. So what is the rationale of removing it? So there's no answer from them. But yeah, so this particular double deductions, like I said, you have to wait for the actual exemption order to come up. Then you will have that very important blueprint from it. So something good to actually see that employment of vulnerable person, right? So this particular one, they always hope that businesses can also go into the employment of those people who actually came out from the prison, right? So this is actually to cater for that, and then allow to extend this particular tax incentives for another 5 years. So employer, if you actually have any CVs of people who come under that, give them an opportunity, give them a chance. They may have done something wrong during their younger days. They may have changed, and putting them and giving them a chance is actually very important. Now, on this particular slide, Doctor, right, I would like to just ask your comments about expansion and extensions of exemption for foreign source income. Now, you see, when this foreign source income exemption was actually being given, right? The government is trying to say the rationale of them doing that is because they wanted the citizen of Malaysia, as in particular, or the residents in Malaysia, they can be foreigner, but they permanently stay in Malaysia, okay, to bring in their foreign earnings, no, foreign profits, should I say, foreign gain to come into Malaysia. So hence the extension is actually given to allow that influx of money to come in. Do you want to comment on that particular rationale and that particular thought? Do you think it will be successful? People will respond to it or not?
So 2 points for that. Now, you just point number one, you just imagine that you have someone inviting you coming over. So we are not going to close the door when you come in. So the door is open and we're not going to do anything on you for that time period.
Yeah.
But then your thought will be, what happened after that time period? Once I enter the door, will the door be shut? Then are you going to do something on me that I cannot run away? So you see that, so it involves, therefore, this kind of policy discretion. Policy discretion means the government can decide during that particular period what they want to do, and then another period, then doing something differently. Exactly because of this discretion, and then it always will make the policy ineffective. Because when people want to bring in their foreign income to invest here, whatever it is, even though it is guaranteed that it will not be taxed for that couple of periods, but you never know that once you come in, you stay there, then it will be taxed later on. So that doubt itself already will be an important hindrance for those money to come in. So that's number one. So therefore, responding to Agnes, your question, would it be successful? No, I don't think so from that perspective. And number two, like what we just discussed, as you mentioned just now, I agree with that point that you just raised, where there must be a reason why you parked or you invest abroad at the first place because of the return. So then you keep your income, your revenue out there must be because of the return as well. So where to allocate the funds, domestically or abroad, it always come back to the relative return into these two different places. So again, the question backs to, are we going to have enough opportunities, enough return to attract them to come back? So like Agnes, what you said, tax is just a part of the reason, probably not an important one as well. The return itself is always more important. So I totally agree with that, the point. So yeah, that's how I see these things.
What about, will currency also be an indicator? If I bring it back, I have to keep it in ringgit. I mean, would it be an indicator?
It will be, especially when you observe a particular trend in the currency. During those days when we have this ringgit depreciation non-stop, 2 years back, and also during the 16, 17. So until the Bank Negara has to come up with a measure that asking they repatriate the foreign funds for any exporters, they have to repatriate the foreign earnings within the 6 months. You know? So you have there must be a reason why they're reluctant to, other than because of the business strategy, business decision, where they have to keep their funds abroad for their investment purpose. But it is because when you observe that ringgit is a one-way bet, where ringgit will just keep depreciating. So what's the point of bringing in right now? Even though it sounds cheaper to have your asset back into ringgit because you can get more, but the ringgit is going to depreciate further. So which means if you want to bring the money back, to overseas for investment purpose, then you are making a loss. So you don't. So that's in that sense, it is a point. But I don't think that that ringgit stuff is a critical or decisive one, because currency keeps changing. So and you always can hedge against those currency risks.
Sure. Thank you, Doctor, on that one. So let's move on. So, other tax deductions and exemption and incentive that was actually available for businesses includes allowing you further tax deductions on the employment of a senior citizen, as well as those people who are actually in R&D. Now, the interesting part about this senior citizen is we are talking about people that are salary 4,000 and below. So again, this is something that I gave as my panelist feedback when I was actually seated with the Indian Revenue, speaker, was actually that, you know, the fact that a company wanted to actually welcome a retired employee to come back, or a retired person of certain age, is because the person is talented and the expertise is required. And the likelihood is it's not going to be 4,000 ringgit, right? It's more than that. So is there any way that we just off that particular rate and say, look, this age, please welcome them back? After all, PMS was talking about what? PMS is talking about inclusivity, right? That was one of the key words that he had been using during the summit, right? Inclusivity. So honestly, this part, I don't see much inclusivity. So item number 12, they wanted to actually give tax incentive when you are actually doing programs on this anti-corruption thing. More information required. I don't have much information as at this point in time. And the expansion of tax incentive or automation on agriculture, to be honest, nothing new, right? It has always been there. Yeah, they just do a little bit of a redefinition. Okay, more tax program, income tax exemptions for program organized at international level, verified by our the tourism industry in Malaysia. Now, this one, in the past, during Visit Malaysia year, okay, we normally will have this. For people who are managed to bring back 250 pax, international delegates or tourists or whatever, that income that they earn, they can go for certain type of tax incentive or tax exemption. That is tax exempt income, you know. But while they are actually doing this for information, ladies and gentlemen, the gist of item number 14, this program or this international event that if you intend to host in Malaysia, that is verified by tourism, they actually wanted the number to be more than 1,500. So that number is a totally different thing. I'm not too sure. Item number 14 here, they want people to come in or they don't want people to come in. Or they think that it is like the recent summit, so many people coming in, everyone can actually do a 1,000 over event, right? And come on, how many hotel, how many places can house a 1,500 people work footprint, right? So again, this is something that I hope that the government, even though it's actually in their budget announcement, but when they actually go through the parliamentary arguments and etc. and debate, I hope that certain of this threshold actually being dropped down. Okay, expansions of the income tax exemptions for art, culture, sports. These are very much for the tourism people. Item number 16 as well. Tax deduction for training in AI. This is welcome, I would say, okay, but we are not talking about any AI training. We're talking about AI training that is actually endorsed by, I think it's called NADIC or something like that. There is one particular agency who's actually after that. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to have more detail about the highlights that I'm putting up here, by all means, ask my team. Right, we will be able to give you more information. Or what I can do is, when I give you the slides, I will give you the more detail behind the scenes. Shall we do that? So that you will actually have more detail on all the items here. Okay. So exemption or tour guides and etc. So I think these are actually quite straightforward. Okay. Oh, hey, the slides is not moving. Okay. So now, other impact that is actually non-tax related, right? Okay. Doctor, we got to watch our time a little bit now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. On businesses, it's actually the introductions of lemon law, which actually came out from the budget speech as well. Right? And then we talk about carbon tax. And then we talk about e-invoice, other impact that is actually upcoming, as well as we revamp. We are going to, for businesses, the greatest impact, if you ask me, a shocking impact as of the recent, maybe like 100 or 400 days or like 4 months back, is actually the revamp of the stamp duty. How stamp duty are being cropped into our businesses at the moment. So very quickly, Doctor, allow me to only give you not more than 5 minutes to comment the introductions of lemon law. Lemon law, what it is it something that businesses is ready for?
All right. So I'm long-winded, so you only give me 5 minutes. That word lemon actually comes from economists in the 1950s by Kenneth Arrow. So he was a Nobel Prize winner. So now what is we have no details yet about how they are going to design this lemon law, but the essence of this lemon law is to make sure that informations are transparent and symmetry. So that's the keyword. They are symmetrical among buyers and sellers. So what sellers know about their product, it has to be 100% being known by the consumer as well. So that's the key point. So if there is so in that sense, we are trying to make the business to be more transparent about all the ingredients about their products, so that the consumers know about so when they purchase the products, including all the possible side effect, like for example, of consuming your items. So that is the essence of this lemon law. Rather, instead of what we make joke about just now, when we have the chit chat that it gives the superpower to the consumer. It's not about giving the all the power to the consumer in order to allow them to make any unreasonable requests, but it's about having information equally shared between these two parties. So the what I call the most classic example, of course, is second-hand car, is a used car, because in the used car market, the owner of the car always have the information more than the potential buyers, including what happened to your cars in the past, have you made any accidents, so on and so forth, that may damage the quality of the car. So therefore, later on, because of that asymmetric information, we call it lemon, then the consumers always have a chance to buy a lemon. That means to pay more than what is supposed to pay because of that bad quality used car. So it has bad consequence. If we didn't take care of that possibility, at the end, the market will just vanish. Because when the customers, the consumer, lose confidence on the products and the quality itself, so no one is willing to pay money for that, and then the market which is gone. So therefore, in that sense, it is so. So in short, this is what I'm trying to say. It is to guarantee to make sure that the informations are symmetrical between buyers and sellers.
So I see a lot of participants asking for slide. Don't worry. I think what I'll do is I'll just give everybody, everyone,
including me.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So what we will do, ladies and gentlemen, what we will do is, like I said, we will give the meat of the highlights as well, right? What's the current, what's the, so you have it in full. So we flash you just on the point form because we just wanted to do a top line today. Now, what about carbon tax? Is it relevant for businesses? Are we ready for it? Very quickly, Doctor.
We have a target to meet when it comes to carbon dioxide emission. Like for example, by 2030, we have a target called NDC target, Nationally Determined Carbon Target, which is to limit our carbon dioxide emission relative to our economy, our GDP, to be 45% less than year 2000 by 2030. So how do we do that? Therefore, we must find a way to incentivize firms to minimize the carbon emission. So we have multiple instruments to do that. Like for example, in Malaysia, if you realize, we did have what we call voluntary credit, carbon credit, run by Bursa 2-3 years back. So that is in a way where it incentivizes companies to come up with solutions that can save the carbon emission, and then that credit can actually can be traded. So it is a more common instrument used by China, for example, by United States, particularly California, by EU. Now, carbon tax is more controversial because no one likes tax. Even though the purpose or the goal is the same, which is to reduce the incentive or to disincentivize people to emit carbon. But the only way is that carbon tax is truth tax. Now, we have incidents where Canada, for example, because of the election, the issues, people, even Canadian, those who are very pro-environment, so they cannot tahan this carbon tax, and it has been
Abolished.
abolished.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
so we
okay.
are going
I
to
got
face
cut
that
you there.
next.
I'm so sorry, doctor. I have to cut you there on carbon tax. Yeah, because of the time. I'm so sorry, doctor. Yeah.
Sure.
I think when it comes to carbon tax, we can even talk about it as a separate matter. We can have another conversation about carbon tax. But on the very, very low round level, ladies and gentlemen, what I see in businesses, like for example, I saw one shopping mall. Shopping mall, these are the place whereby they will be creating a lot of negativity when carbon, right? So they need to neutralize it. And I saw what they did, so at the open space car park, I saw them starting to actually have a shades. So when they have a shades, they 100% solar panel it, right? So they try to actually go back to their own carbon neutral position. So I think businesses, however that tax is going to come, you got to see how you manage it. What is your strategy for it? This one, doctor, we shall date again. All right, for another conversation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, other things about e-invoicing is also impacting business as well as revamping stamp duty, of the stamp duty. Now, very quickly, I just want to use one slider on e-invoice. This slide was actually shown during the roadshow that I actually had with the Indian Revenue. Basically, this number is scary. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the 627 million, 627.8 million. This number, we are talking about e-invoice already being validated. Document is already been validated. This information is up to 14th of October. On 2 days ago, when I was in Penang, having part of that roadshow, Dr. Abu Talib, right, the CEO himself, he came on stage and he announced the latest number at that day. Okay, so that day the number was 660.1 million. So, ladies and gentlemen, on daily basis, the number of e-invoice validation is scary. The volume is there, and you didn't even realize it. Everybody said, let's wait for the system to crash. No, it's not crashing anything near. Phase 4 and 5 is upcoming. Is it going to be delayed? I doubt so. Okay, because that is the most important. The success of e-invoice will be seen when we see 2026, the implementation of phase 4 and 5. So that will be the important determination. So stay tuned for that. E-invoicing is a topic that 𝗧𝗏𝗏 are spending a lot of time on. Yeah, we will be able to actually help our client as well in your e-invoice adoption. Keep in touch with us, okay? Now, let me touch very quickly on revamp on stamp duty. On the surface, ladies and gentlemen, on the surface, on what the budget actually announced. The budget announced about stamp duty rate for property owner for non-citizen to actually change from 4% to 8%. And then we talked about stamping on the employment contract from the 300 in salary amount to 3,000 in salary amount. This is actually being criticized. Why? Because the ask to the budget was actually, if you really have to have the employment contract stamped, please make it minimum 4,000. As per what the Employment Act is actually talking about, recover 4,000 and above, right? So, well, the budget came out to be 3,000, all right? In stamp duty also, very quickly on the very, what we call top line approach, the extension of time given for first home buyers. Disappointing to not seeing the other sub-sales having the stamp duty exemption as well. The rest will be basically more of instruments. Now, the important part is this particular slide, ladies and gentlemen. Now, starting January 1st, 2026, we are going to move into self-assessment for stamp duty. All right. Now, that will actually require the Inner Revenue to revamp the Stamp Duty Act. As we speak, ladies and gentlemen, okay, the tax fraternity as well as Inner Revenue, they are coming together to re-look into the Stamp Act. Okay, they're looking into the definition, what shall come within the instruments, and etc. Okay, so what does 𝐻𝐸𝐿 aspire to do? They wanted to, when they come to the self-assessment, they wanted to standardize their assessment, right? When they are actually going to look into, standardized approach of assessing you, right? When they actually look into your stamping approach, they wanted to ensure the stamp duty collections is actually high. It's actually one of the highest collections budget target, right? Within the tax revenue that they wanted to collect. Number 3, they wanted to actually expand their spend, and they wanted to collect and refund you as efficient as possible, and they want to standardize the imposition of late payment penalty. For today, I just wanted to touch very quickly on late payment penalty. This is inner revenue slide. I'm going to show you. Okay, to standardize, ladies and gentlemen, currently some of your penalty can be 250 and whatever. It's going to be everything starting from 1,000 and above. Okay, this kind of penalty is huge. So as a result, we intend to actually do a separate sessions, Coffee on Zoom, on stamp duty alone, right? I'm actually confirming my invited guests. So as a result, as for today, we will not actually go into too much detail. I hope everybody here stay tuned with us from our next Coffee on Zoom, whereby we wanted to delve into stamp duty by itself as a separate matter. Okay. Now, if we're talking about employment, changes of tax matter, when we talk about as an employer, just now we mentioned the stamp duty on employment contract. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, you must stamp the 10 ringgit. Okay. This is something that you cannot avoid. Okay. And then, the good news is some of you who may actually be using a foreign expert, right? They wanted to ease, they wanted to look into how they actually issue their employment pass to actually have a more swift approach in doing so that we can also have our talent recruit properly. And like what has actually mentioned just now as well, they are giving tax exemptions to senior citizens who actually come back into the ecosystem so that you can actually employ them as an employer. And then, of course, the tax deduction on AI, cybersecurity training, and etc., whereby you can actually claim for every dollar that you spend, you can claim $1.50. Okay. So if we go to impact of individual, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, all this, I will give you a comprehensive slides with details behind, right? So right now, we're just going more on the top line approach. Impact on individual, basically, to me, in the simple nutshell, it is just a redefine of the existing relief only. Do they give you any additional new relief? Well, only on the tourism 1,000. Other than that, it is actually more of redefining. Like, for example, the vaccination expenses that you already have, they just expand to say, okay, the vaccination include other types. Okay. The childcare and kindergarten fee used to be for children who's only up to 6 years old. Now they say that, okay, children also define up to 12 years old, right? So meaning your aftercare service, the 安亲班, Chinese, the 安亲班, those things can also come forward and claim. So this is something I'm happy about because I happen to have an 11-year-old boy. Okay, I still have 1 more year. Next year, he is 12. 1 year of deduction, I'm happy at least. Okay, and then there are certain re-looked into, like, for example, that allow you to actually buy these environmental sustainable equipment, the food waste equipment and home safety. The amount is 2,500 ringgit. In the details slide, you can see the breakdown. Okay, now you need to tax plan this one properly because you can actually claim over 2 years, 2026 and 2027, right? Okay. So if you buy everything in 1 year, ladies and gentlemen, it's only 2,500. Okay. If you spread across your purchase into 2 years, then you have 2 times of 2,500. Okay. So you have to decide, you want your house to be safe first or you want your environment to be better first. Okay. So if you wanted to actually capture total 5,000 incentive, then you have to break it into 2 years. Okay. All right. So the one on the domestic, the 1,000 for entrance fee, this one, I actually critically and actively comment about this particular one when I was having the opportunity to sit with the tax authority, is that I say, look, yes, I understand why you only give the entrance fee because you see booking.com is always full in booking. All the weekends in Malaysia, do you know our hotel are very full? Okay. Yes, you think you do not want to promote that, but this is not what you're looking for. What you're looking for is when I look into my long weekend, I am comparing the cuti Malaysia to Sabah opposed to cuti Vietnam in Da Nang, for example. if my total cost, including air ticket to Da Nang, is much cheaper to me flying from KL to Sabah to go to the Sabah holiday, I'm going to fly overseas. As a result, your 1,000 cannot be restricted to only entrance fee. It should still cater for other things because your competition is other people's visiting country here, right? Okay. So anyway, this is like more of like a wording approach, yeah, of what I have actually highlighted just now, the vaccination and things like that. Okay, there are still people coming in, interesting, right? And then the life insurance was also being redefined, whereby your children was actually able to come into it, and etc. Okay, so the detail of it, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we will actually provide you with more detail than what I'm actually having here. Here, I'm actually only using 30 slides, but by the time you receive it, probably is 50 over slides. Okay. Now, one thing that I need to give you the detail first here is, in fact, dividend tax was something that was actually being announced last year. Okay, 2025. They talk about for Sdn Bhd, right, or Berhad, right? If you are not listed, no, actually whether listed or not, it doesn't matter. Your dividend received more than 100,000, okay, you will actually pay the 2%. Now, in this particular budget 2026, right, this 2% dividend tax is actually created into LLP. Yeah? So if you have an LLP, use LLP to actually do your business, right? Your profit distributions more than 100,000 is also the recipient, the partner who receive it, more than 100,000, you also need to apply the formula in order to have that 2% being deducted for tax purposes. Okay. Now, impact on property, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly. There is one thing very interesting in the budget this year. There will be special tax deductions, yeah, of 10% of qualified expenses capped at 10 million for modifying as well as converting commercial property into residential property, right? So what the government see is they actually see a lot of commercial buildings that may not actually have been well occupied, or whether it is like fully occupied or not, right? So they're actually looking into this incentive to allow people to re-look into how you could actually repurpose the building from commercial building back to a residential building. Now, while this is commendable, how it's actually to be implemented is super, super important, if you ask my personal opinion. Because now, I recall my time when I actually paid a corporate visit that I did to Hong Kong, to one factory. You know, to look into that factory visit, I walk into like those apartment, you know. I went into an apartment, then I go to a certain floor, then they say, oh, this is what. So it is like this door go into a factory door, and then next door is someone living, right? And then I have to go to another floor, another part of the factory, and etc. I think it's totally messy, right? So this comment, I also having the opportunity to just highlight to the government while we are on the roadshow, even though they are only presenter, they can't do any changes, but it's always good to just sound whatever we think. I said that, you know what, this implementation is not going to be easy. Are you going to mess up the entire conversion? Does the conversion means the entire block building convert, only you can qualify for this? If that is the case, what are you going to do for people who do not want it to be repurposed? Okay, they already have their office. Are you going to have a drag along policy to say that 75% agreed and you drag everybody along? Or what are you going to do to it? Right? So there is a lot of other things on implementation of this particular incentive that the property industry will need to actually have their conversation. Those of you who are in property industry, please have your conversation through your association and then bring to the government and say, look, we like this, but how to implement this, okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't realize, Budget 2026 have one very quiet tripping into the system. That is RBGT loss. Do you know that RBGT loss, right, for property investor, if your property was sold at a loss, you will actually have RBGT loss. RBGT loss, you can actually carry forward to offset against your future RBGT gain, you know, before you pay the net gain for RBGT tax. This is a very good thing. A lot of people may not realize, but this is important. And this year, 2026, the government created in this thing to say, these losses now going to have expiry date. In the past, these losses has no expiry date, okay? So now it's going to have expiry date of 10 years. So this also during my panel discussions, I actually highlight to say that, no, look, property, RBGT loss 10 years is not practical because, hey, unless you are a property trader, you have property in out, in out, in out, then 10 years you will be able to utilize. But hey, not everybody sell property every single time, okay? So 10 years may not be allowed. Please, if you may, defer this to the longest possible you can. But anyway, seems like on the death year. So ladies and gentlemen, LPGT laws now come with a limit of 10 years, okay? So just now I want to record this particular slide regarding this. Okay, increase of stamp duty for non-citizen from 4% to 8%. While this is actually a good thing whereby the government should therefore have a higher collection, but do you know that the foreign ownership of property in Malaysia is actually less than maybe max 1%? That's all, right? So yeah, this is negligible. I think I don't know how it's going to actually increase the fiscal collections. All right, and then on property sector, right, the first home ownership stamp duty exemption is there. It was there last year. But one thing that they have removed last year, you can also buy property for non-first home buyer owner, right, whereby you can buy property up to 1 million, whereby stamp duty are still exempted. Now that was actually being removed. Okay, so during my panel discussion, I took the opportunity to highlight that, you know, our property industry has never really recovered. Our property prices has never gone back to our glorious year of growth. So would you think that you should put that back into the system so that you encourage the property transactions, right? Encourage property transactions. So ladies and gentlemen, wow, I actually took extra 8 minutes only. I'm glad. So we are at our Q&A, but I think because of the time, maybe I will take maximum 1 or maybe 2 questions, and then let's close the sessions by 12:15. So this is the QR code I was highlighting as well, right? Or you take the screenshot of this one, keep this mobile number. You know, it's always good to have some important numbers. Police phone number, very important. Syarikat office number is also equally important. Emergency for text knowledge, you call this number, okay? Or you WhatsApp to this number. So now, allow me to very quickly go down to the questions here. Okay, may I ask my team, May, is there any particular questions that we can actually pose for our discussion here before we close the session? May? Is there any particular ones that you think that we should take?
You can try to answer the last question because actually we answer almost all.
Oh, already answer all, is it? Wow, wow. May I know the slide will share with us? Yes, I'll share with you. And what I will do is I will...
Agnes, sorry. Agnes,
yes,
maybe we have do a slide on a QR code for them to download today's slide. Can I share screen on that?
Sure, but today's slide, I'm thinking we need to beef up further. We need to give them further highlights.
We will share them today's slide, and then for detail one, maybe we will share, send it later.
Sure. Yeah, please do that. Please do that. Yeah. Okay. So is there any particular question anyone wanted to ask? No? Okay. No, if that's the case, then Doctor, would you be able to do your closing? Yeah, I would like to actually hear from you as a closing remarks, right? And by number 1, rating about budget 2026. Okay, rate on budget 2026, and then any important things that you think is actually missing out from the budget. What are the 3 goodies, and what are the maybe 3 missing out things that you actually hope to see? Over to you, Doctor.
Let me make it short
Sure.
instead of having 3 versus 3.
Sure.
I probably want to I will give the budget 2026 to be 7.5.
Oh.
Right, so it's an A- in my school. There's an A- in my grade. Now, why I think that deserves an A- for a very important reason. Now, in 1990s, when we have this wawasan 2020, right, Vision 2020, so that basically help us to reimagine what kind of Malaysia will be going forward. So that was a very different era. And then we lost somewhere after the financial crisis, and then when China entered WTO in 2001. So then we start to reimagine how Malaysian economy will look like again. So that was the second time during the Najib period when we have this new economic model. So all that kind of stuff that we enjoy today, especially in the Klang Valley, you know, when you talk about the TRX, the Merdeka, the Max Highway that became the highlight in the Trump's video, and then all these free trade zone that we have. So it started during those period. But again, it failed because of 1MDB and so on and so forth. Now we are having the third time of reimagining Malaysia by 2030. So by 2030, if everything goes as scheduled, as planned, we are going not only going to be a high income nation by then, very likely to be 2028, the latest by 2030, the high income nation. We are going to be one of the 30th largest economy in the world, which means that we are still very young as a nation. So by then our median age is just about like 32 to 34 years old. So we are young, we are rich, and we are powerful. Powerful in the sense that we have that region, with power, at least in this region, to set the agenda on how these regions should be going forward. So then, and plus what you mentioned just now, being an AI nation. So it is a completely different Malaysia that we know, as we know in 1990s or during the Najib time. So this is not it is going to be innovation-driven nation. So which, if you bring that vision into your business strategy, so that probably will prompt you to rethink your company strategies as well. So that you are not left behind in this development.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor, on your concluding remarks. For me, I think I will also wanted to actually rate it to be about 7.5, right? Why I'm actually doing that is also because I think we have to actually move, as businesses, we have to move away from the mindset that they are handouts. Right? You can see that grants is basically almost disappearing, almost disappearing. So basically, we are moving into a situation whereby it's incurred basis incentive. You incur first, and then I incentivize you. You incur and I incentivize you. It's not that I give you and then only you're thinking about how you're going to use the money. So that kind of reverse engineer, hopefully we will cultivate the right set of business. And then I think businesses, we also need to be, should I say, resilient and competitive, and then relevant. There is one question asked to me when I was on BFM radio stations recently. Do you think we should be handed out again? I say no. Like if certain businesses have to be wiped out, we probably will actually have to have it as it is. So I would like to end my thing with this particular slide. I just send it very quickly. I share it with my family members, but cannot see. Can you enlarge it a bit? Basically, just to look into, just to look into the picture itself, right? Read this. A student in China made a robot from his project and sent it to pick up his degree for him, right? Will AI nation means this, ladies and gentlemen? I'm not too sure, right? Doctor, lecturing will be so tough moving forward when everything will actually be done. So I crack a joke on this internally with my own family regarding this. I said, at least the students is honest about the assistant that he's actually, used. Yeah, and then allow his assistant who actually worked very hard in answering all the examination or project questions and presentation may be done by the human, and then allow him to gain the credibility by working up to actually receive the degree, right? So will we, Malaysia, move into this? I don't know, but hey, SMEs, if you are still depriving yourself from AI, from technology, I think you will be in a tough time, right? We have to put ourselves into that kind of mind. All right, okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, right? I hope that you find today's sharing different from other budget sharing, right? And then for our video, we have recorded it. What we will do is we will do certain part of a touch up and then we will upload to our YouTube channel, okay? So also go to Syarikat YouTube channel and then listen to the replay. Okay. Okay. So on the slide, I really hope that you enjoyed today's sessions, and then stay tuned for the Stamp Duty Act, right? That particular one. And then we wanted to be able to actually discuss more on stamp duty and beyond, right? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wong. It's
Thank you.
always a pleasure having you. I'm
Pleasure
always
mine too.
excited by speaking to you, and I learned so much from you. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye,
Bye,
everyone.
Agnes. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye, doctor. Bye, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone.